Thank you. I'm going to read 3 poems. The first is, this is a verse portrait of Charles Darwin, and it begins at the beginning of his life as a child. The Donkey, August 1817. All along the roads, the beds of grass played dead that summer, the long blades bending under the weight of rain. Charles walked forever, legs unbound by fence or distance, a silver net of droplets over his hair. He wandered the river, casting, plonking, skipping stones, pulling worms to hook, his nails thin, black crescents. The air, the quivering air carried him, its damp brew of scent that rose from the ground, that fell from the trees, honeysuckle, dirt, cow dung, field grass, wildflower, hay, leaf he trod underfoot. He gulped down deep breaths as his father, the doctor, did, trying to swallow the words for what he felt. Beneath the pine trees, the insects lived and prayed. Still he killed them. His pockets belched treasure to hoard back praise, black beetle carapaces, crumbling butterfly wings, pads of moss, quartz cord rocks he smashed open on fence posts, spooking the gray, sag-bellied, sad-eyed donkey who believed he was a sheep among sheep, dumbly tearing grass, he taking off across the field. Some of the Irish servants believed donkeys genuflected on Christmas Day, but this one couldn't protect the flock from foxes, and every week in spring a new dead sheep, a ram with a hole in its forehead, stigmata from another ram's horns, lay petrified on its side, bloated, fly-blown, fur black clotted with mud, until the farmer dragged it away. His mother's body, too, had grown toxic, sprouted a fatal mushroom like a field after rain, and all the world that had seemed to be made of glass, ecstatic, transparent, mysteriously molten, had broken. No amount of plunder, no collected cachet of wonders could extract the adoration he now needed to chase away the terrible secret growing daily within him, the thought that either his father was no doctor or God was a donkey. I had this idea that when Darwin was on the Beagle journey, I was trying to imagine he was terribly seasick, and I wondered what he would make of Noah's Ark while he was on this journey. Darwin's Noah. The dead animals were swinging in his cabin, staring, stinking, sloshing jars, hanging by a rafter, coming after him, awaiting their final honors, eyes wide and blank with last moments. Too seasick to dissect, he pictured Noah not as biblical hero, but as a man with a job to do, his brain full of chronometrical measurements, navigational notations, trying to catch a snatch of sleep while the ark hurled and tossed in the torrents and the sun above turned black. He saw Noah and his family cramped and bickering in their tiny gopherwood compartment while the animals stamped and cried nearby, terrified, while the seeping scent of half-digested animal suppers, stomach acid, and shit flowed freely beneath his door, a river of sick. A rogue bolt of lightning split the waters, and his wife's hair lit green. His sons and their wives were screaming, their lips stretched wide round the fright, though silent under the deafening, for he would never hear God's words as well again, as they plunged into the open mouths of flood-bearing, record-breaking waves. His hurriedly cobbled boat threatened to smash open, for he'd been too busy walking with God to pay much attention to carpentry. On the second and third decks, the animals had begun to eat each other. He could hear the shrieks, the screech, the smash of fox beneath the panicked rhino's foot, the tiger tearing red flesh off the deer that pressed into the corner where a snake slowly wrapped its black weight around a mouse, whose twitching pink nose reddened with sudden blood. Noah, being Noah, would have prayed, but only for so long. He was a man with a hefty job to do, keep order where there was none, save some creeping pears for posterity, and deliver his children alive, for already the bears were beginning to claw at the cabin door. He vowed that if he lived to see new land, and his wife and his sons lived, and the wives of his sons lived, he would willingly build an altar on which he would slaughter every bird, every animal, and every creeping thing as offerings, and over time eat the rest. The death of the transmutationist. In the dream he was to be hung, it was that simple. The high wooden platform on Castle Hill, with its circle of rough rope, was surrounded by concentric circles of species and types, a target practice of old classifications with Darwin, the archer's heart. Beginning from there with the Cambridge dons and clergy, all the old guard who'd come to see him fall. It was his fault they weren't sleeping well. And continuing on through the atheists, rogues, dissenters, and the women, followed by the mammals, the birds, the fish, and then at the very back, scrambling to get a look by perching on the shoulder of a kind iguana, were the barnacles and limpets. The blasphemous transmutationist in the era of creation was asked to speak. He turned around and raised his hairline, showed the long red scar where he'd already been decapitated. He cracked jokes about his hero's wounds, one for the good fight and 20 years of stomach cramps. He spoke eloquently, finally, about the dangers of arrogant man. Only the animals at the back clapped. They had come out in support of the fossil resurrectionist, who alone seemed to see how they felt about their slavery and how they too experienced fear, pain, sorrow for the dead, and also the very, very soon to be dead. The hangman offered Darwin a handful of nuts, but when he reached for them, Darwin saw the pores in his hands were bursting with black fur. The man snatched the nuts away before he could touch them, then pulled the lever and dropped the floor. Darwin watched the animals in the distance contort in grimace, sulk, and torment, then remember their indifference as he twitched from the noose. Even then, his fingers were itching to write. And I'll do the one last very short one. On the subject of untimely extinction, though Elephas maximus had survived, old shaggy Mastodon suffered a fateful extinguishment, Captain Fitzroy enlightened, due to the door of the ark being cut much too small for its 4 sordid tusks. Darwin could just see it, like a massive, ancient Highland cow, one brown eye peering through the slit in its knotted fringe. He could hear its bellowing deep "Mow" as it watched from the shore the flood waters rush in, the boat float off without him. Thank you.